Alright, let's do it. We did not estimate what would happen.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What do you mean by that?
So today we're going to be going over some updates regarding the Trash Taste podcast fiasco. So in case you don't know, Trash Taste is a podcast run by the...
I don't think the recent drama also helped with this at all. I think if Hassan didn't get banned, I don't think they wouldn't have had to talk about it. They could have ignored it.
Anime Man, Sea-Dog VA, and Giguk. They talk about anime and Japanese culture and things like that. And recently they had an episode get a lot of backlash thanks to their special guest, Hassan Piker. You can see the like-dislike ratio is just over a 24% like ratio on this video.
That's not good,
tens of thousands of comments.
666 views! Satan is at work, chat.
All of them pretty mad about the choice of guest, Hassan Piker, based on the many controversial things he has said over the past couple of years. And today we're going to be looking at the first response from anyone at Trash Taste regarding this situation. I think the things that are said by Sea-Dog VA in this case are actually pretty interesting and probably answer most of the questions people have. Okay. Now, the first update to give you guys before we get into the new stuff, Hassan has been banned.
God, I spent like an hour talking about this. We're back.
On Twitch, hell hath frozen over. He's actually been banned for once, and that stems from his recent comments where he...
Wait, but how old is this? Oh no! This is old news! He doesn't even know he got a ban.
Advocated for violence against a sitting U.S. official. I guess that's what it takes to actually get punished if you're Hassan Piker on Twitch.
VTubers,
he's been banned.
meanwhile.
How long that lasts, who knows? Probably not very long, but...
True.
Here is the response we're looking at today. I was uploaded on Connor's clip channel here. You can see the reception of this is, you know, still somewhat controversial. It's obviously...
It's not too bad. This is bad, but not that bad. If it hits about here, that's like really bad.
A lot better than the podcast episode. I think some people are still angry about it, but it's titled How Trash Taste Tried to Deal with the Hassan Controversy. Now, it's a 17-minute video. We're just going to kind of hit the key parts for brevity's sake here, but let's start off right here.
Fair.
The way that we handle it, and the way that you should handle a lot of these things when they happen, like drama, is that just don't...
Ignore it.
Sometimes it's just better to just not address anything.
True.
And just let it just fade.
Unironically, that's probably the best answer for most controversy, especially if you're someone who makes a lot of content.
It's really nuanced when you have to respond. Most of the time, it's better to ignore. It depends on the situation. Not every situation is a one-to-one. Ignoring is likely the best option.
Especially if you're like a daily uploading channel or streamer or something. Just like keep moving, unless it's really bad. In this case, it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
A lot of people are upset.
Not great,
but I think
the end of the world.
Issue here is that they made that pinned comment about deleting comments, and it's like they started some sort of a response, which makes people expect a full response. If they're going to touch one subject, eventually you would expect they're going to touch all the subjects, and that's kind of what they're doing here, as it would play out.
Mainly because when things get too heated, almost, no matter what you would say in that moment, people are still going to be going to be unhappy, or at least, the group of people that want an apology, whatever, anything like that. If you say anything, they're just going to be more unhappy, and it just adds more fire to the flame. So that's why generally we're just kind of like, all right, we'll just let it, let it die down, let it move on, let them get over it, and have their fun for the week. Most of them are brigaders. Well, okay, look, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. So this is gonna get clipped as well. I know this now. So I want to be very mindful about how I approach this. If I'm gonna mention anything here.
All right.
Is that I think there are a couple of important things to mention. So I think, first of all, I think from our podcast perspective and from our perspective, if it is fair to say that if we don't engage in politics publicly, because it's just a mess. None of us live in the US. None of us are in any of these kind of intense political situations. Whatsoever. I think it is also fair to say that, why would we bring someone political on? Which I think is very fair.
Okay, he acknowledges that. That's good. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. I think they also just thought they could do a stream with a guy they've done a stream before. He did do a podcast with them a year or two ago, and I don't think Hassan was nearly as involved in basically anything political. Well, yes, he was a political streamer before, but he wasn't as, like, popular, I don't think. So people didn't know about him that much. They didn't account for the amount of controversy Hassan has stirred up since last time. Yeah, maybe that's just, like, how they thought, and they didn't account for it. Again, you cannot know for sure, 100%. You don't live in, like, people's heads.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. The fact he was there just in general wasn't very good, but it really wasn't just because he's a political streamer. I think they could have brought a lot of political streamers onto the podcast and wouldn't have had anywhere near the backlash. The reason people...
I think if they brought on Asmon, I think they would have gotten a fair amount of criticism because of the controversy that Asmongold had. Yeah, what about Destiny? Oh, absolutely, they would get shit for Destiny too. I think anyone that is very popular and has political opinions. Maybe not so, because Hassan had a he also, I think the content cop thing, or not content cop, sorry, the content nuke that was posted by Ethan also dropped, like, right before this happened. I don't think that helped at all either. I don't think that was a good look.
Were so mad at this particular episode.
It was, like, fresh in people's minds. I'm sorry, I'll stop pausing.
Is clearly because of Hassan. And it's not just because he talks about politics, it's because people don't like the unhinged stuff he has said time and time again.
Extremely, like,
yeah.
a very fair criticism of us to do, which I agree with. And then I think the most annoying thing from my perspective and this whole thing is that there were legitimately fans of Trash Taste who were unhappy. And it's frustrating because you can't see or, like, actually hear from people who watch Trash Taste or who aren't happy because it just turned into, like, a political dick swinging contest.
Okay, I think there's some bit of fairness there. Like, yeah, it's hard to get a perspective on what the actual Trash Taste podcast fans think when there's so much negativity coming from people who probably aren't subscribed and are just going to the...
Well, the other thing is that they didn't really have a gauge on the reaction before, because I don't think Hassan's podcast before this one, which was a year or two ago, I think it was 2 years ago, I don't think people cared that much, or maybe it wasn't that bad, and things have changed and it's gotten worse. So
this video to basically jump in on what's going on. And as I said in my previous coverage of this whole thing, I don't think the backlash on the episode was necessarily a repudiation of Trash Taste. I think they grossly underestimated how much people don't like Hassan outside his community. And I think this was more of a repudiation of Hassan himself. People saw the podcast episode as like a lightning rod for their dislike of that man. And unfortunately for them...
And again, people have the Steak and Eggs podcast, which was with Emmy and Tectone, and when Asmon gets invited on it, there are a lot of people that hate him, even though he is amicable and friends with those people. He doesn't talk about politics on there. He doesn't make political statements on there or anything like that. They just talk, and there are people that hate him. I think it's just... They weren't acclimated either. People just were like, what the fuck? Hassan's back? I hate Hassan. I remember seeing something about him like a month ago. And that's fresh in their minds. I don't think Trash Chase was making political statements when we're having Hassan on. I don't think so either. I think they're grossly out of touch with who he is and what he's done. Yes, I think it's just lack of information. I don't think they knew what they were doing in that sense.
It's their podcast, so they're the ones kind of seeing the public reflection of that with the like-dislike ratio and all the comments, but the anger was mostly towards Hassan. They didn't like the fact that they were on the podcast, but they're much more angry and seeing it as an opportunity to talk about him and show that they don't like him and to repudiate him publicly. And just happened, the vehicle for this was their podcast episode. And the interesting thing, too, I think he talks about this later, but you can't really tell based on an outside perspective. I don't have their analytics, but looking at their Trash Taste YouTube channel, at most, they've lost 10,000 subs. Because that's the way the metric moves. It's every 10,000 subs once you get past 1 million. So from what I can see, they've lost no more than 10,000. That's at the very most they've lost. So they might have only lost a few thousand subs over this, despite having
That's
an
a lot. That is a lot, but it's still not like 20, 50,000 people.
Nightmare of a reaction to that episode.
About which side? Which is bad on our part, because like we've never had any politics or any kind of talks like that in the comments. So I think it was kind of bad of us to kind of almost invite that. Second of all, the thing that was also very frustrating is that no matter what people were saying, there was a lot of brigading on a lot of sides, and I think that two things can be true at once. There were Trash Taste fans who are unhappy, and there also was brigading happening, which is also very frustrating to deal with, because then it's like, okay, now we can't actually listen to any criticism on the episode because both sides are jumping in, right?
Well, I think that is somewhat important. I mean, yeah, there were definitely people jumping in. Like I said, that podcast episode was like a lightning rod for people who don't like Hassan, and that's a way to show their disliking of him. But I think also, as he'll go on to say, is he wasn't aware of all these things involving politics and Hassan and some of his takes. And it's like, well, that's maybe an opportunity to read some of those and understand why people are so mad and why it was a bad idea to have him on the podcast. But I do generally get what he's trying to go after here.
And, I even told Hassan, I was like, hey, man.
I'm sorry, I have to address this. What the fuck is wrong with you? This person, I just tired out. You're such a dumb fuck, and I hope you're still listening. This person said, Hassan has some dirt on all these streamers. No way they're so morally bankrupt. They're all 100% diddlers, all of them. You are unironically such a delusional retard. I don't even know how to put it into fucking words. I've had people saying that, like, I'm associated with Asmongold just because I share some of his opinions, and I've also had people attack me for saying that Asmon deserved his ban as well. And they said, oh my god, Alana, she said that Asmon deserved the 2-week ban. She's such a piece of shit, she fucking hates Asmon. It's like, that's not what I fucking... Why are you speaking for me? You're so cooked. That's where I think you need to stop and like hear yourself saying this shit, because you're a deluded moron who can't think for themselves. You're being a fucking moron. Sorry, go take your meds.
Can you not? Like, it's bad enough that one side is doing this. Please don't.
Yes, they're friends, but don't fucking say like, oh my god, they touch kids. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Bring up the fucking episode and be like, hey,
sound like a fucking
send people.
Insane person.
Yeah,
just be above this, Don't.
I'm glad also you told him to knock that off, because that made things infinitely worse. Okay, there was already a lot of negativity heading towards the episode, but when he said the whole counter brigading comment and encouraged his audience to jump in there and try to change the narrative, that made people even more divisive, and that made people even more gung-ho about trying to send a message with this podcast and the choice of special guest.
Don't do this.
I think it's a little bit silly that they didn't think that they wouldn't get any backlash. That's what kind of irks me about the whole thing, is that with what Hassan has said in the last 2 years, like, think about it logically, you would have to value the risk versus benefit of bringing on Hassan. Like, if this is something that you do for making money and you are doing this because you love anime or you want to do your little podcast or whatever, I think it's dumb. Sorry, if you put Asmon in the same thing, like with Trash Taste, he recently got banned, people would still hate him. They would probably criticize and be like, oh my god, you invited this disgusting cockroach? I'm not unsubscribing.
Because look, if people who have very extreme beliefs want to go crazy, I can't stop them. They can do whatever they want. But you hope that at least, another side wouldn't do that as well. So I told him, I was like, hey, please don't do that.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, man, okay, my bad. But I think as well, I told Hassan as well, I was like, hey, look, the show is not political. We don't want to deal with politics.
It's fair.
We're most likely not going to have you on again. No, and that's not like anything like, hey man, you know.
Well, no, at this point, like, what else are you going to do? Like, you could, it could have been an unfair situation. Let's say instead of Hassan, it was someone else completely innocent, and for some reason people went absolutely ape shit and were angry about it. Like, yeah, maybe it's unfair in that situation, but you can't do it again because people would be even more angry.
I think the content nuke and Nux videos had not dropped at the time they pre-recorded with Hassan. I know, but I wouldn't have... I'm talking from a business perspective. I wouldn't have even posted it. I would have just taken the L because the damage is now basically irreversible. People will remember this. They will be like, well, damn, I don't know if I can really watch Trash Taste, or they'll have like a... If they make another mistake, people will point this out, as opposed to being on a zero reset and not having made a mistake in the first place. I've said this before, I think it would have been funnier if they just said, okay, we're gonna do an Asmon podcast. I think that would have been so funny. Or even better, bring both of them on and have them talk about anime. Oh my god. Oh my god. And then say, you have to not talk about politics and liken anything to politics, just talk about anime. That would have been funny.
Agreed. With Hassan,
but they won't do that, obviously. But I'm just saying, in a fantasy world, it would have been funny.
He was on the podcast 2 years ago, and I believe the like-dislike ratio on that was like 90%. But a lot has changed over 2 years. I mean, he's made more unhinged takes, but most importantly, I think more people are aware of the things he has said, and that's why people were so ready to jump on that particular episode, the latest one he appeared on. And yeah, you can't bring him back now. Like, it would be even worse, honestly. Speaking as someone who is, many moons ago, I made a video, I think it was a waifu tier list. People didn't really like some of my choices. So I doubled down the next day and said, aha, you guys were right. You thought I ranked these characters too low. You're right. I gotta move them even lower. People didn't find that very funny. So I guess doubling down sometimes when people are mad like that doesn't really work out too well. And this is a
Pippa still thinks Joker 2 is a good movie. I will not forgive her for that.
no-brainer at this point.
I can't forgive Pippa. And then she doubled down on it and said it was amazing.
I believe it's right here. He actually mentions the specific number of subs they lost, and it's a pretty surprising number.
I can tell you exactly how many right now. Let me find out. We lost 4,000 subscribers, which is not a lot, but I also think
it's a decent amount.
It is disingenuous, and I think it's bad to pretend like, you know, that people aren't unhappy.
Well, I mean, first of all, 4,000 subs, losing 4,000 on a video like that with so much negative feedback is actually a very small number. I mean, 4,000 is nothing to like waft your hands at. Like,
no, 4,000 is a lot. Like, to put it into perspective, I get around about 500 subs on average per day. 4K for millions of subscribers is a pretty decent amount. And that's like them consciously clicking the unsub button. You don't know how much you're gonna lose over like the next like 2 months or whatever.
it's still a significant number, and it shows that people who were fans of the podcast and were subscribed were not happy.
Pissed.
But it also shows that a lot of the people, like I said, the video is like a lightning rod for people who don't like Hassan, so they went over there to show their disliking of him, and that's reflected by the sub numbers there. And again, you know, with a channel, they have like 1.5 million subs, to lose 4,000 is like a pretty small number. It's not insignificant, but you would expect it to be a lot higher given what happened and how angry people were about the podcast itself. But let's skip ahead to the next section here.
Okay.
Well, there was obviously a lot of bandwagoning on it because people were, you know, loving it, and people don't like Hassan, and so people were jumping on it and making videos about it. There was a lot of stuff that people said that was just flat out not true, and people were just making stuff up. Some people were saying like, oh, they didn't have this guest on. They said they were too controversial, but they had another guest on. That's never happened.
No.
So the name I heard in that situation, I saw people saying that they wouldn't have Nux Taku on the podcast because he was too controversial. That was one of the names I heard people saying. I've never seen any proof.
I've never heard of Nux Taku being invited. I don't think... What? Well, I need to have that in writing or something.
Of that, so I don't know. I feel
dumb.
like if they were willing to invite Hassan, I think they'd be willing to invite Nux if that's something that they wanted to do. But yeah, I think people were making that up.
I think that, again, this is all speculation. I don't think they would invite him based off of the whole V Shoujo controversy that happened like years and years ago. Even though it's Wander Under the Bridge, I think that from that basis, because Sea Dog's related to like Iron Mouse and then Iron Mouse is V Shoujo, right? Like, off of that, but not because he's controversial or anything like insanely controversial.
But it's also like with the deletion of comments. I said that in my first reaction to this whole thing. I believe them when they said that they weren't deleting comments, because YouTube's comment section is really messed up, and it's not too surprising. But I think he's going to talk about that in a sec.
That's just a bunch of lies.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
So I don't know what that was about. There was also the only things that were disappointing from me, my perspective as well. That like really, I was like, man, what the fuck? Is that people would then make whole narratives based around, because we had X on, that we then couldn't criticize any other creator. We couldn't.
That's just 4chan schizo posting. I like people on Twitter schizo post about me as well. Like it's just what people do when they're chronically online. They might not know anything about your like life and like how you think or how you behave off stream, and then they just like make up shit. I don't know. I'm surprised that he's surprised at that, because he's a massive YouTube figure. Yeah, that's just Raz. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's pretty natural.
You know, they're like, oh, you know, these people have changed. They're horrible. Yada yada yada. And I was like, oh, okay, that sucks. That people are just making assumptions, but not a big deal.
People would lie on the internet.
But yeah, no, I mean, look. The reason why we didn't address it right away, we wanted to wait, was because a lot of people were, you know, they were just demanding things. There were a lot of comments that were like, you need to delete this episode. Where I feel pretty confident in saying this, where...
No, that would be a terrible idea. Don't listen to people in YouTube comment sections. They don't know what they're talking about. Delete the episode. Can you imagine? That would just be like throwing gasoline on the fire. Never listen to these people. They're insane.
If you ask Trash Taste viewers, do you want them to delete the episode? I think most viewers are sensible. They would say, hey, even if I don't agree with this episode or I don't agree with this one, I wouldn't want you to delete an episode.
Move, actually.
You know,
makes it worse. Yeah,
that's crazy. Now, also, I want to make it very clear as well, in case you're watching this on YouTube, that because this is no doubt going to be a clip, that I'm sure that there's a good chance the comments, you know, might get taken over depending on how big this clip is. Please think for yourself.
It's gotten a lot of attention so
Please
far.
Don't just read top comment and form your opinion based around that.
No, I never do.
You're all adults. I trust you.
When I read a top comment that literally quotes someone, like a content creator, I always try to look it up myself or find a clip. Because people miss, like, I had it happen today. I got clipped out of context, and they took, like, 20 seconds of something, and were like, you're defending Hassan, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I made a video farming Hassan's drama and saying that it was bad, that what he said, if anything. But apparently that wasn't good enough for them. They probably wanted me to be like, oh my god, he should be banned and deplatformed. Oh my god, he should be permanently suspended. Hassan should die, blah, 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 blah. I don't want any of that. I just wanted to I just made an opinion.
What I really appreciated is that a lot of Trash Taste fans did seem to be just tired of people picking a side and being emotionally charged about it. Yep. And we're kind of just like, hey, maybe it's not for me. All good.
Yeah,
next episode.
That's not the vibe that they do on their channel. I think that's pretty obvious. But let's skip to one more section, and then we're going to wrap this up.
All right.
But I think the underlying point is the same. Of like, look, to the Trash Taste fans that are disappointed, sorry, you know, it is unfortunate. Are we going to delete the episode? No. If you did you unsubscribe? Okay, I apologize for that you felt the need to unsubscribe. But at the end of the day, you know, there was
less content.
We did not estimate what would happen.
And that's pretty much exactly what I was saying. They just made a bad choice. It's pretty much all it is. Anyone who thinks there was some kind of malice in their choice of guest, or they were adopting his political views or anything like that, I think that's going too far. I just think this was the results of not really
short-sightedness,
reading the room,
probably.
not understanding just how controversial Hassan is. They even Connor at one point basically also said that he doesn't really keep up to date on these things. I mean, I think on the one hand, you have a bit of a responsibility to understand who you're inviting onto your podcast, but I also understand that, yeah, not everyone's up to date on all this stuff. So, it kind of depends on how you view that. But overall, like I said, bad choice.
Again, let's flip it on the other side of the aisle. If Asmon was talking to Amiro and Tectone, do you think that Asmon and Amiro know every single thing that Asmongold has said in the past, 2 months even? Do you really think they keep up with their so-called friend? I'm assuming they're friends. They hang out, right? No, of course they don't. That's fucking stupid. Who the fuck does that? No. At the end of the day, people don't realize, it's Asmon's kind of, job. They talk. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're just friends. Yeah.
You didn't really see the big picture here and how much people disliked Hassan, and it was reflected in the like-dislike ratio. And I look at the latest episode. They uploaded another episode after the Hassan one, and that one has a somewhat abnormal amount of dislikes compared to their usual video. I think people are still mad about this, and they're still channeling their frustration through another lightning rod, which at this point is any episode uploaded, but obviously it's died down a lot. So I don't think that's going to continue for a bunch of episodes in the future. But for now, that's really what we got, okay? I think it's the main takeaways is that they
should invite Alex Jones to talk about anime girls and VTubers. Just completely flip the script.
Knowledge they underestimated the reaction.
The anime girls are turning them gay!
Hassan's not going to be on the podcast anymore, it sounds like. And pretty much,
oh my God, man.
There was a lot of people from outside the community or outside their subscription base that were coming in to jump in on the video. And yeah, that's pretty much everything we need to know here. And that's about it. So as always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.
I think that response was pretty PR heavy, but I understand why. C-Dog is very PR focused, very, hands-offish. Okay, if you want to unsubscribe, I'm sorry. And I'm, thinking to myself, well, I mean, who cares? At the end of the day, they unsubscribe. They're not going to watch your content. You're not going to get them back by saying, I'm sorry you felt the need to do that. It's it's whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Very British. I think he's just, a very PG-friendly kind of person. Yeah, it's his, what is it called? Not prerogative, his image. Yeah. Again, I don't think that they deleted comments. I genuinely think that would have very likely been YouTube. It would have been YouTube that said, well, not said, but there's an auto mod feature when you get an influx of comments, which happens sometimes when people try to share the video a lot, or there's a lot of comments coming in at the same time. YouTube does delete stuff. I could absolutely believe that they had nothing to do with it. I don't know for certain, but I'm inclined to believe so.